Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us. I'm so thrilled to have you here for our final event of this year's Summer Book Bash, a romance panel. So we're talking about summer romance. We have some really great authors lined up who are ready to share with you. And also, we want to hear about what you're reading. So as we go along, feel free to put what you're reading in the chat, put any questions in the chat. We're going to leave plenty of time for Q&A. It's going to be a really fun, informal conversation. And George will go ahead and get us started with some introductions and talk more about himself as well. Thank you, George, and thank you all for being here. I'm so excited.
Yeah, thanks everyone. We're gonna have a lot of fun. So I'm George Rage. I am an author of many things, mostly in the children's literature space. And a lot of my books do have like little romance angles amidst all the action and fun. My most recent release is Bashir Butros and the Jewel of the Nile. You can find me on Instagram at BY by George Rage, my difficult to spell last name. If you can navigate that, you can find me. So what I want to do is start not just with intros, but kind of like a question and intros packed together. I always love, and it's funny because I know all of you, but I don't necessarily know like your origin story and kind of what got you into this romance space. So I'm really curious, like whether it's, rom-coms or a relationship or a book. I'm curious what got you into romance and then lead into kind of, who you are and tell us about yourself and tell the audience. And I guess let's start with Ronnie.
Hi, I'm Ronnie. So my latest romance book is This Night Is Ours. It came out May 2024, and it's a slow burn yet takes place over 24 hours, like rivals to lovers romance. And I got started reading romance, oh gosh, like 25 years ago. And it was the Regency romances like Julia Quinn. Like I have all the original copies of those Bridgerton books. That's how long I've been around. But yeah, I always really liked writing like love stories like that, but it wasn't until oh, thanks Tara, thanks Stephanie. It wasn't until I started really pursuing writing like in 2005 that people said, "Hey, your voice is more YA, like more teen than like adult." And so I pivoted towards YA, and that is where I feel like I feel like my voice is the best there. I've always loved writing love stories, trying to write my own love story, I think, into the books, trying to rewrite like my own high school experience, which wasn't that great. And so, yeah, I live in those spaces and I like try give my characters like the high school life that I wished I had. And that includes like a really cute boyfriend. And so that's just kind of how I fell into it. And there's something about romance, you know what's going to happen. You know that the end is going to be okay, and that's very comforting for me. And there are even times like when I'm reading a romance book that I skip over the third act breakup just because I'm like, I want to read the good stuff. Okay, I'll skip that. Now everything's good again. And so I really just like that. I know that for the most part it's going to be the story between these two people and I'm going to learn why they need to be together and I'm going to root for them.
Love that. Love that. How about you, Jackie?
Just writing something in the message and then I'll hold on. I,
Oh, I
sorry.
love that. Try and do it all.
I can't. No, because now I'm talking to you and writing and thinking about what I'm going to say. Okay. I'm Jackie Khalilieh. I'm the author of can you see it? Can you see it? These two YA romances. And I have a third one coming um next July. What started me on romance? I don't know. I've just always been a hopeless romantic, even like when I was playing with my Barbies and just getting them married and falling in love and um, being 10 years old and watching Beverly Hills 90210 and rooting for Brenda and Dylan.
Brenda and
And
Dylan.
just like always like having like a couple that I just was like admiring and wanting to see get their happy ending. When I started ninth grade, I sort of fell into or I discovered John Hughes movies, and I thought they were so fun because it wasn't just about the romance; it was also like hijinks and silliness. And but I also felt like as silly as it was, there was an aspect, and this sort of speaks to like I was a teen in the 90s. So this sort of speaks to how little media we actually had for us back then. But I felt like I could see myself in at least one of the characters. And I think that's always been an important thing for me, as somebody who consumes media and somebody who creates stories, to write characters where other people can see themselves. Um, I was always like a hopeless romantic, but I wasn't allowed to date or have boyfriends in high school. And so it's just been fun to like process those things that I've been through and write autistic main characters and have them fall in love and be messy, make mistakes, and go through it all and get their happy ending.
Oh, I love that. All right, last but not least, Caitlin.
Hi, thanks, Ronnie, for this chat is so active. I'm like half listening to you all talk and half seeing all the messages pop up. Um, but yes, I very similar to Jackie. I was like as a kid very into playing with dolls and stuff for like long past when all my friends were doing it. And um and making up love stories was always like my favorite part. And love stories and also making my main girl, whoever she was, whether it was a Barbie or a Polly Pocket or whatever, go on big adventures and do things that were not usually realistic, but seemed cool, which is kind of what I do in my books. Oh, my books. Hi, I'm Kaitlyn Hill. I have written 3 young adult rom-coms. The most recent is called Wild About You and came out like Ronnie's last year, last May. Was yours May as well? Yeah.
Yeah, May 14th.
I was a week later. So that's my most recent, and then I have one coming out next summer, called Ancient History Between Us. There's very little out about it right now, but it should be up for pre-orders and stuff soon. But yeah, I was always very into love stories as long as I can remember. And when I was getting into writing, which my first writing experiences were like fan fiction in high school. And so that was about love stories, which was like myself, self-insert in love with, celebrities and stuff. And but when I got into writing like book style things as a real adult, sort of, I was in my early 20s, still very like young adult vibes. I think young adulthood extends kind of past when publishing kind of cuts it off a little bit. I think like college years and even a little beyond very much fits the YA world. And that's what I was kind of wrapped up in, both reading wise and seeing my experiences reflected in YA. And my high school years and college years were very like high school especially was like a really big boom in YA publishing. It's like the age of Twilight basically and all the things that came after. And so I got to grow up in a young adult heyday. And sorry if my dog starts causing chaos. She's back here now.
We welcome the chaos.
And I think that, yeah, I was just drawn to YA because of that initially. And now I'm much more of an adult romance reader and have dug deep into old historical fiction, all the things Ronnie was talking about, and which historical fiction is still great. That's coming out now, by the way. Keep reading historical fiction or historical romance. And yeah, now I'm very much in adult romance world reading wise, but I think that reading romance I recommend to anyone. Just it's such a rich genre in what people are doing with the stories. And I think it is really fun to work in.
Yeah, and clearly everyone can see that it is like just so much fun. Like we're all really enjoying it and really passionate about it. But as writers, we know it's not always easy. And what people may not realize, and I'm sure that a lot of you wonderful librarians in the chat probably already know, is that like the romance market basically carries publishing on its back. Like from an economic standpoint, truly carrying publishing on its back. And that's, really part of the labor of love of the writers. And yes, we enjoy it, but I'm really curious for each of you, like, what is, would you say, maybe the hardest part of crafting some of these novels that we've produced? And for like just, and it could be a rewarding thing, but like writing novels, period, is hard. But I'm really curious if there's anything specific to romance, or it could just be writing related that's hard for you. And let's do the reverse of last time. So let's start with Kaitlyn this time.
Sure. Yeah, I personally find, and I think a lot of authors probably agree with this, because we first get into writing because we love writing. And the publishing side of writing is much harder for me than the writing side. Um, it really complicates your whole relationship to this thing you're passionate about. And so, writing romance itself, I'm not necessarily like, when I'm in it, if I can block out all else, I'm in it. I still love it. It's like the best days, on the good days, it comes very like naturally, um, and it's just like fun to work in worlds that you create with characters that you create with all these elements that you fall in love with yourself before you get to start sharing them with the world. But it is very hard sometimes to shut out all the noise, once you are in like actively publishing books. There's a lot of voices in your head, whether it be like reviews you've come across of your past stuff, or just opinions you see on the internet about, like, I saw Jackie say something earlier about like people hating on the third act breakups, and that's very real. Like, you see discourse everywhere about, should we really be doing this in romance? And it's like really hard sometimes to shut out all of these opinions and just create. And because there are many, many strong and many polarized opinions on what romance should be. Um, and just like trusting your own voice and not playing to like things that are really fickle, like the sentiments of the internet today, because it could change tomorrow. And yeah, just like staying true to the stories you want to tell can be a challenge. And I think also with romance, like, ultimately you are writing like happy, hopeful stories, and so much goes on in the world that can make that difficult sometimes, and you can feel like um it can be hard to want to put your, oh my God, my dog's chirping, sorry. It can be hard to want to put, all your time and energy into like watching fake people fall in love, when there's really intense stuff going on in the world. But it also makes it feel like important. You still need to have the happy endings and create media that makes people happy and hopeful. So it's an honor to do that as well. That was a very roundabout answer, but
No, I mean, I'm so glad that you talked about kind of the external part of it rather than like the internal part, which is what I had in my head, because that's so true. It's very hard to do that, and people don't realize the difficulty of creating with all the external factors, and it's not getting easier. And like people think like, okay, we're gonna introduce all these like new tools that help writers do what they do, and they don't really help. Like if you're a true artist, like you really, there's nothing that can substitute just you in the page. So. That was a really great find. And by the way, I think Zoom does a great job of blocking out your dog because I can hear nothing. So
well, that's great. I am selectively muting myself because she is barking at absolutely nothing at the door. So
it's just excited to be here, be part of the show.
exactly.
Jackie, I'm curious to hear what you think about this.
From my perspective, I think, can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I think one of my biggest challenges that I continue to come across is because I'm autistic and I write autistic main characters, I don't always follow the typical or expected plot beats in a story, because the way that an autistic person falls in love looks a little bit differently than maybe a neurotypical person does. And because of this, there's a lot of times that the pushback from certain readers is that my characters take too long to get over things, or there's too much back and forth and back and forth. And I'm not there and I'm not saying, well, she's autistic and, it takes her a while when she forms an attachment to to separate from that person, or that there is a lot of back and forth before she finally realizes that, yeah, this person's not right for me, or it's time to move on. And it's hard when you write books for readers who are used to reading through like a neurotypical lens, and they expect a story to follow like certain beats. And I'm trying to write from an authentic place from my own experience. And I don't write the way that I should write it because I know my characters, and I'm like, no, she's not going to be able to get over this person. She's going to go back. And then she's probably going to go back 5 more times, and she's going to make mistakes, and she's going to be impulsive. And I also, it's not really my style when I'm writing the story to explain that in the story, because I'm hoping that the reader will pick up on, we have an autistic person whose brain, processes things differently, experiences life differently, and therefore their love story will look different. But it doesn't always get across, and that can be really frustrating when well, people will, instead of understanding that the back and forth is part of her like attachment from being autistic, they'll instead interpret that as bad pacing, right? Or they might be this character's way too in their head. Well, that's, it take the, even my own editor, when she's looking at my work, will be like, there'll be a piece of dialogue, and then there will be like this much text of my character just like processing one sentence that a person said. And she's like, well, this kind of slows down the pacing. And I have to often fight for it and be like, but realistically, you might hear one simple sentence, but an autistic person needs to like process that one sentence in a different kind of way. And I like to show that, but it's not always appealing on a like a mass market sort of way. And that's a challenge for me as well. Another challenge, I would say like on a more light note is I often find myself writing love triangles, whether I mean to or not. And I know that's another polarizing subject, but I always find myself on the wrong end of a love triangle. And then like for example, I'm Team Jer from The Summer I Turned Pretty, which is not pop. I know, but I have my reasons, okay? And even in my own characters with my first book, I'm more like Team Levi, and that's very polarizing to some people. And I guess sometimes it's hard for me to see people be so um, mean sometimes, or really like angry about certain characters. And I don't know if whether it's because I'm an empath. I'm like, but can't you see that they're hurting too? And there's a reason why they're the way they are. So that can also be a challenge.
I love that. I love that. No, oh my God, there's so much there. I mean, it's just I think both for folks who feel seen through your books and folks who need to understand as well through your books, you're doing such a service. And the messy love triangle thing resonates for sure. I love that. And I feel like people in the chat want to hear more about your reasoning. Ronnie, how about you?
Well, I have a few challenges. I also write from a marginalized perspective. I tend to write about biracial girls and interracial relationships. And so sometimes I want to write what's true and like what's been true in my life. And well, I remember getting like feedback from people saying like this isn't realistic, not for this book, for my first book, like this isn't realistic, and I'm like, okay, yeah, but there's Meghan Markle and the prince, so obviously something is realistic. So like writing from that perspective, wanting to keep it true and wanting it to make it not the typical story of people in my who would be in my like racial makeup or whatever. So that's a challenge. But the other challenge is because I write contemporary romance and the beats are typically like they're the same usually. So trying to make it stand out as a story. So trying to make it different and unique so that people like the formula will be there. It'll be the formula that people expect and are comforted by, but there has to be something special to keep them hooked. And so that is my biggest challenge is like, what can I do? Like, what can these people want that is different from what other, you know, characters want, or what even if it is something that characters want, like how do I make it unique to them, or how do I make it stand out? How do I make it special? So that is my biggest challenge, is just that, and also just plotting in general is the that's that one. Even so, I mean, that's probably why the beats help with, because I'm like, the structure's there, I just have to put stuff in it. So yeah, it's just plotting it, because I think a lot of us, when we write romance, we're just like, okay, here's one character, they're just vibing, and now they kiss. And that would be the ideal way to write it, but obviously there has to be more than that. And for me, like, the challenge is like, what's the more? What's bringing them together? What's tearing them apart? Like all that stuff. So,
Yeah,
Actually,
oh, go ahead.
yeah, I was going to say something similar before I went off on my whole the world is terrible and it's hard to write happy stories thing about like people, one of the criticisms of romance often is that it's like very formulaic, and like how can a story be exciting if you just always know there's a happy ending? Like there's, where's the interesting stuff in that? And so genuinely keeping it interesting and keeping people wanting to read till the end, even though they know the couple will end up together, like making it interesting enough along the way that you stay reading and stay invested in them,
yeah.
is a real like challenge, and I think is what makes romance writers so impressive, honestly. Is that especially the ones that are so prolific, and it's like, how do you keep thinking of new ways to make it interesting?
I know.
Yeah.
And that's a testament to all of you and what you've been able to do, because you've been able to do that and break in a very crowded and saturated and tough market, really like an especially tough market. And I teach a lot of creative writing classes through various organizations, and my students really struggle with that particular aspect of like, how do I make it mine? And of course, there's a lot of different answers, but it's easier said than done. And one of the critical things is just writing compelling characters and giving the characters an arc and a way to grow and change. And one of the kind of key phrases you might hear is the character has to get what they need, not necessarily what they want. And what I feel is so special about romance is it really like models this archetype better than other genres, I feel. There's this sort of kind of plot line of your true love may turn out to be someone else, or the main character decides not to get with the love interest in the end, and there still can be a happy ending in that context, but it could just be like the character learning something about themselves, right? And I'm really curious um how you play with kind of because the it came up in the chat, kind of this idea of like the happily ever after, and I'm really curious how you all engage with that idea in the context of like giving your characters maybe what they need but not necessarily what they want. And it may be that you just kind of you're always geared towards, all right, no, I want to give them what they want as well, but I'm really just curious what your takes on that are. And here, let's start with Jackie first.
That's an interesting point because so my first book, Something More, was sort of like a love triangle. And I just find it much more interesting to write the back and forth and the process of getting to that happy ending. And so I know like a couple of people wanted to see her with that character a little bit more, the happy ending, but it's not as fun to write. I don't know. But it's the path to getting there that, and it's not, and that's what it is. Like the path to getting to that happy ending is never only ever about the other person. It's about what that person does need, and they don't always see what it is, like what's getting in their way and stopping them from sometimes falling in love with this person who is perfect in front of them, but they're not able to see it for whatever reason. And I think that's a common thing that I tend to, my first two books, there was an obvious choice or an obvious lead in the love triangle, and it's like, why is she being so stubborn? Why is she not able to get to that person? And I think a lot of character work has to be done within the person to be able to be deserving of and being able to give the best selves to that person and not jumping into a relationship when they're not quite ready. So I think that's why a lot of my books end up being very character driven heavy instead of plot driven, because I'm really inside the character and what are they battling and what is it that they can't see that's literally right in front of them. And what's kind of funny is that I wrote a novella for something more, and I haven't released the title, but the title is Everything I Wanted, and it's like, okay, we got to the end of the book. Uh, she got everything she wanted, and we're gonna find her, and she's not there yet. Like she's still not happy. There's something still missing. There's still work within her to be done, and that novella sort of processes well, I did this, I got this done, and I'm still not, there's something missing. And you're right, it's not only about the other person like completing them or being the puzzle piece that they click with. It has to be the character and um, where they are at in their lives. And is it always, do they always need that happy ending? I don't know. Like my third book is actually not a romance, really. There's a love story in it, but we're not calling it a romance because it definitely doesn't follow the plot beats of a typical romance. And it's not necessarily about my character getting a happy ending with another person. It's really more about herself. And I feel like that was a natural stepping stone for me because each of my characters is always dealing with much more than the love story.
I love that. I love that. How about you, Ronnie?
Mm, yeah. For it usually takes me a couple times to figure out exactly what the character wants and needs.
Okay.
So yeah, that's definitely one of my challenges. And I think what I have to do, honestly, is I had to write through it, but I also had this message I'm sorry, this method that's like a bunch of boxes where like I'll have like what the character, the lie that they believe, and why do they believe this lie, what the truth is, how can they get to the truth, and that method kind of helps me figure out what they need because a lot of times what they want is just an outward expression of what they really need, and so what they want may not even be exactly what they want, but there's like something in that want that brings the need for it. And a lot of times I just have to write through that to figure it out. And so yeah, that's my main thing. And I just kind of plug that in. I think that that also helps with the plotting. It helps with the character development. It helps come up with those things that the two characters can give each other, even if they don't know they need it. They're unaware that they need this thing from each other. And I think playing with that can really just raise the stakes. And that's another thing about romance is like what even are the stakes? Because like fantasy, you could throw a monster in there, especially for contemporary. Like what are the stakes? How can we make them realistic? How can we make them relatable? And how we can make it compelling enough that people read to the end so that they see that these characters are getting what they need. And if it's also what they want, even better.
Love it. How about you, Caitlin? Agree, disagree? Thoughts?
Very much agree. Um, sorry, my dog is distracting me more than anyone. There is now a package coming to the door at the best
Oh
time.
no.
Girl, okay. Anyway, um, oh my God, I'm so sorry. If maybe you can't hear her at all.
Not at all.
Okay, wow, amazing, because she is so loud. Sorry for making half this panel about my dog, and that might not even exist for all you know, because you can't see or hear her. Yeah, I definitely resonate with what both of you all were saying. And think that a lot of times romance in particular starts with a main character or two main characters who kind of like Ronnie, I think mentioned this, have like a false belief about love, relationships, themselves in relation to love and relationships. So a lot of times it starts with like I am totally not interested in having a relationship. That's like many romance main characters start the book that way. They are like they have no place for love in their lives. They've been burned by love in the past or whatever the case is, and they're just not interested in that. And so that's what they want, I guess. But it's like, is it really what they want? So it's kind of getting past whatever their initial like almost unreliable narrator version of their wants is, and figuring out or putting out there for the reader. Yeah, like what their real want is. If they didn't have this like trauma in their past, or they didn't have whatever false idea about themselves that they're going to need to work through and grow to figure out, and that kind of thing. And so, like, by the end, whoever they end up with, like that, or however it ends up, that is going to be what they want. They just might not have thought they wanted it at first. And hopefully, it's also what they need. Um, but yeah, I think it's always fun to play with the character at the beginning versus who they're going to be at the end, and what is this character's damage basically that's going to make them start out really like, not interested. And sometimes, I don't know, sometimes some romances that are like insta love or whatever, maybe like the character initially is not opposed to a relationship, um but they have a wrong idea of what kind of relationship they want. And this person couldn't possibly be the one because he's like a nice boy and I only like bad boys or whatever. and figuring out what their situation is going to be and how you're going to kind of unravel that and change them individually and together with the relationship.
Yeah, it's funny because as all of you are talking, one thing that occurred to me, and the more I think about it, the more like it becomes real in my head, is contemporary romance and contemporary, just writing contemporary stories is so hard because you're having to create these stakes that are not necessarily artificial. And I think, Ronnie, you made the point of like, if you're writing a romantasy, you might be able to throw in like a big bad empire or something like that. And of course, we have that here in America right now. I'm not going to get political, but it's like we have to, as contemporary writers, and I've been very fortunate to get away with some of that with writing non-contemporary books, but like create our own stakes, and that is hard. And it is, and so I'm really curious, actually, if you were to have the opportunity, and I'll just quickly like it's funny because I'm not going to get into it actually. I had a romance book publisher approach me at some point in the past about writing, fantasy romance, and this was before a certain other book came out and blew up that whole genre. And I'm just like, maybe I should have done that before. But anyways, if you could write a non-contemporary, it could be any genre. I'm curious what genre it would be, and maybe what age category. If like you have like one that you're like, okay, I want to try this potentially. And anyone can chime in.
I have always, for a long time, wanted to write something like a Persephone retelling with dragons and warring kingdoms. I tried to do that in grad school and I just did not have the range for it. So maybe I can try again at some other point, but like fantasy is it's so overwhelming to me because you have to make up so much stuff. And contemporary, I'm like, I know how money works. I know we only have one son. I know like I know these rules of Earth, and I enjoy world building my character's world, but like having to world build like a government, and I've seen people with like org charts and spreadsheets, and I'm just like, no, I can't do that. But I would love to do that if I stop being scared.
I love that too, because I've had conversations with fantasy writing for, I feel the same as you, that like fantasy is so daunting to me, or anything like fantasy, sci-fi, anything that's like speculative is so daunting to me because it's like, how would I do all that world building and just make up all that stuff? And then fantasy writer friends are like, no, like contemporary is the hard part because there's so many rules that you have to stick to because that's just how the world is. When you write fantasy, you can be like, this is the way it is because magic. and um
Yeah.
and they find it like way easier to work in that space. I think it's so funny the different perspectives on that. But yeah, I'm not a big fantasy reader, so I don't feel like I could quite
Mhm.
get into that space as a writer without a lot of catch up on reading fantasy stories.
Yeah.
I recently, like, I guess last week before, I went to a book tour, like a book signing for Ally Carter, who is like one of my all-time favorite authors, like ever. Like I grew up reading her Gallagher Girls book,
Gallagher Girls.
The Spy School, and that was like formative, my favorite books as a middle and high schooler. So anyways, super excited to see her. I could, talk about her for another hour. But I would love to write the kind of stuff she does. It's like I love romantic suspense is kind of what she's working in now because she's writing adult and they're still spies. And she was talking a lot about in her conversation at the event about like she can't do low stakes like contemporary. So romantic suspense is still kind of contemporary, but like the stakes are like they're trying to save the world somehow. They're spies on the run from whatever. And I read a lot of romantic suspense and find it really fun as a reader. And I'm similarly daunted by like crafting a thriller mystery type plot line, but I feel like that would be more approachable for me than a speculative fantasy sci-fi thing. So like, yeah, and gradually I keep sort of like almost dipping my toe in that water with my YAs, and then I pull it back. I'm like, actually, no, I don't want to make this one like intense. The world is gonna end if we don't. I don't know. I actually just want them to be focused on kissing and having fun. um, so yeah, I would probably get into writing spies and that kind of thing.
No, and I see it happening one day. Love that. How about you, Jackie?
I have a hard enough time understanding this world, so I don't see myself ever writing anything fantasy or sci-fi, unless it was like time travel, but I don't know if that counts. Because big fan of like Back to the Future, but like that's about as wacky as I go.
You could do
Um,
historical.
okay, so I did write a technically historical adult novel because it's set in 1995. So
Oh,
that's
geez.
yeah,
You're right. That is historical, technically.
it is.
That's so
But
depressing.
I think one day, because I love reading thrillers and I love watching horrors, maybe one day a thriller or a horror novel. Um, once I run out of all my like love stories, maybe I'll tap into that.
Yeah. Yeah. Because, I mean, especially for the fans of Happily Ever Afters, I'm curious how you might finesse like a horror and a Happily Ever After, or if that even is like that marriage could work. So I really like that. Okay. We'll do a couple of fun ones, then we'll open up to Q&A. So the first kind of one, because we have a lot of librarians, wonderful librarians joining us. If you were a librarian, is there a book that you might recommend to a patron? And it could be any book at all.
Gosh.
Take
Look at
your
my
time.
shelf.
I need to go like
And
peruse
the
my
librarians, feel free to chime in the chat.
I think it would depend on the patron and what
Yeah.
they're looking for. But I'm thinking maybe a really universal one that I really love is maybe The Giver,
Okay.
but also Anna and the French Kiss, and
Ugh,
also my book
Okay, you can say
and
your
all
own
my
book.
friends'
That's fair.
books.
realistically, please buy my book. Or no, go check out my book so then your library buys more copies.
Yes.
Um, Yeah, I used to be a bookseller and then I was a library assistant and I did much more book recommending as a bookseller for sure, but I it's like every time I would need lots of context. What kind of things do you like? What have you read,
Mhm.
recently? That kind of thing. And the French Kiss is like you know, dic in the dictionary next to YA romance, like
Yes.
ideal. That is it. Um, I'm genuinely gonna check my bookshelves, see if anything jumps out here. I mean, I did just go to the Ally Carter event and I got re-obsessed with Ally Carter's books as an adult. Like I reread her adult books before the event and was just like their ultimate comfort reads while also being like kind of wacky. Like there's so much, spy antics and espionage and whatever. Um, but whenever I read them, it just is this, the inner child that loved the Gallagher girls comes back. So really a big Ally Carter fan. Um, I also love everything Elise Bryant writes ever. And that can kind of apply to a lot of different readers because she writes a lot of romance, but also has moved into cozy mysteries. Um, and all her books are just a delight. So she's up there for me too.
Love that.
That's a hard question.
It
Yeah.
is.
It
I
is, and
said I said they were easy, but they're not.
it depends too. But I'm cheating, and I open my Goodreads, and I'll just list off a couple of books that I've recently read that I really liked. Speaking of Back to the Future, I read a book called Throwback by Maureen Gu,
Maureen Goo.
which sort of has a Back to the Future aspect to it. She goes back in time, and she has to, I don't want to spoil it, but she sees her mom as the same age as her, and that was really fun. I really had a good time with that. I also recently read I'm Not Your Perfect Mexican Daughter by Erica L. Sanchez. I'm a little late to that one, but my editor is using that book as a comp to my third book. So I thought, oh, let me check this book out. And I really loved that. I love a messy protagonist, and that's what you get from her. And in terms of thrillers, I don't know. Let me see. I'm going to pick a thriller that I read recently. I read Holly Jackson's Not Quite Dead Yet. That was fun. That was not a happy ending, but it was fun. Um, and I think that's an adult novel.
I love that. I mean, I'll just say like I will represent and I know some of you have noted some speculative work, but I think that um Dark Matter by Blake Crouch is like if you're into sci-fi fantasy, that's like really good, but there's a strong romance element in there as well. And one thing that we have not represented that I think all of you should try at some point is graphic novel romance. I think that like that visual medium with romance is so much fun, and I love um Maggie Takuta Hall does a really good job with this, but also, I mean, just like Heartstopper and like there are so many great ones in the graphic novel space that like when I go and visit schools and I talk to the kids, like they get so stoked when I bring in graphic novels and talk about that. So I just really love kind of incorporating that into the conversation as well. Um, I was gonna do a speed round of like random questions, but I'm gonna pause that and see if we have questions, and then if folks have questions, let's just do that instead. So, what questions do our lovely librarians and other folks in the audience have? Feel free to throw them in the chat. Give you all a second.
George, I second your graphic novel romance. Like, I want more graphic novel romance. I feel like we don't have enough yet. I
We
wish
should adapt all of your novels.
I wish I had any like illustrative talent because I think it would be really cool to adapt your own, but unfortunately I don't.
No, I mean I don't, and I have wonderful illustrators who are adapting stuff that I've written to graphic novels, so it can happen. We can
Oh,
make it
that's
happen.
cool.
That is very cool.
Give us
Oh,
your hottest takes, your biggest questions, and it doesn't have to be about just like romance books. It can be about, writing or the publishing market, getting published.
mm.
These folks are experts in a lot of different areas. I think we have to be.
We
Okay,
all
so
have
we got
lots
one.
to say about publishing, probably.
Oh God,
Oof.
yes, we can
Don't
dive
get
into
us
that.
started.
Oof. Yes.
Yeah, we don't have a filter. Are romance books best done as a standalone novel? And would you ever consider writing a longer romance series?
I
So let's take
I
that.
like writing standalones, just because the idea of doing a series, like this whole huge overarching thing, kind of freaks me out. But what I like to do, and Sarah Dessen does this, Stephanie Perkins does this, is they're all set in like the Ronnie literary universe. So characters, like it's the same world. You'll see like the same restaurants show up. You'll see like maybe blink and you miss it cameos from other characters popping in and out. So I prefer to do that. Like you can read them as standalones, but if you read them in order, you might pick up on a little bit of extra like Easter eggs.
Love that. Other
I
thoughts?
wanted something more to be a series. Like, well, I wanted like ideally I wanted it to follow my character through because she's in ninth grade, ninth, 10th, 11th, 12th grade. But my editor was like, romance novels do better as standalone. So he sort of but you see it happening with novels that do really well, like Better Than the Movies got a sequel, right? But I think it's novels that tend to be super successful. Um, that's why I wrote the novella because I didn't feel like my main character Jessie's story was over yet, and I wanted to continue telling her story, I guess, on my own terms, and that's why I wrote the novella, which I'm offering as part of a pre-order incentive for my third book, and it was a fun way for me to write the revisit the characters, and publishing tells you no, you find a way around it.
I love that.
Readers, myself included, romance readers are generally like pretty passionate about the HEA, and like with the series, if you did an ongoing series where like at the end of the trilogy there will be a happily ever after, the couple will finally be together, like people can work with that generally, but I feel like that happens way more in adult or in like not genre romance and YA, but like fantasy that has a love story in it.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, people want the book to be like wrapped up in a nice little bow at the end, and this couple's together. But like Ronnie said, like tied together standalones is like huge in romance, and I think it's so much fun to have a series of standalones that's like this is about we'll start with this main character, and then the next book's about her best friend falling in love,
Yep.
and then the next one's about the best friend's brother that falls in, and that happens a lot with adult romance series. And I think that I feel like it's been more of a thing in YA romance in recent years. My book 3, Wild About You, is like the best friend of the main character from book 1, who I didn't know when I wrote book 1 I would eventually write her love story. But I had so much fun doing that and was like super excited when I figured out that I could make up a reason to tie it to the first one. And but they're still standalone, so you can read them in whatever order, and it makes total sense. But yeah, I love having it all exist in the same world and have that be the kind of series of standalones. So you get a happy ending each time.
Yep.
Okay, I like that. I like that. That's a cool twist on the question. Okay, here's another one. What advice would you give to someone who is interested in dipping their toe into the writing romance novels?
Read a bunch of them.
Yes.
Read them all different genres. Read the romanticies, read the YA contemporaries, read the historicals, watch Bridgerton, watch Downton Abbey, like watch all the love stories. Heartstopper is definitely a one you need to be like into. Just read a lot of them because then you're gonna realize that, oh, these all do have similar beats, but the emotion, like it's never going to feel stale because each author and each creator has brought something so unique to it. So you get to like learn all these different elements, and then the next thing is just sit down and write. Just
Yeah.
do it and see what happens.
I think it is a lot of trial and error with finding your writing voice, which is like something that can't be taught, and just takes you attempting to write. And the first attempt might be terrible, but you'll figure out this worked, this didn't, as you go, either like from your own intuition or from writing stuff, giving it to friends who you trust and don't think will like make fun of you, and getting their feedback, and that kind of thing, gradually getting more insight into like what's best about your own writing and honing that. And yeah, my best writing teacher has been just reading a ton. And that's like when I became most kind of devoted to writing, was in a time when I had a lot going on personally, but like channeled all my feelings and stuff into just reading a ton. That was like my coping mechanism. And then reading turned to like I'm obsessed with all these books I've been reading. What if I could like create something like this myself? And having just taken in an absolute like metric ton of recent YA literature, I had all that in my head, and like it came surprisingly naturally to like craft a story, because if you read enough, you pick up on all these things, whether you realize you are or not, that come up time and again, like story beats and stuff like that. That's pretty key to crafting your own novel.
I love that.
Reading and also just writing, getting some opinions when you feel like you can, and trying again.
Yes.
Just
Don't
think
be
about
afraid to
like what it
fail.
is you like about it, right? Like for me, it's um when I find an author that I connect with their work, I ask myself, what is it about their work that I'm really connecting with? Because there's so many different romance authors, and there's some romance books that just aren't for me. But then there are some that I deeply connect with. And it's not about copying somebody else's style, but it's like, what is it about their work that really speaks to me? And how can I take that and make it my own once I write my own story? Like for me, it's always like warm and fuzzy romance. It's like that happy, um, just like that cute first love sort of thing. I love firsts. I love writing about firsts. And so that's something that I take with my work. And yeah, it's just what do you like and how can you make it your own?
I love that. I love that. So this is the question I think we were trying to not really trying to avoid, but because we all have such hot takes and such feelings about it, but like what are thoughts about just, and not just publishing trends and romantasy, but just like the state of the publishing market when it comes to like romance and the market in general, just really curious. And of course with a focus on like publishing trends with romance.
Yeah, it's been, I think, the last few years. I mean, romance has always been really dominant in propping up the publishing industry, like you said at the beginning. But the past few years, and honestly, like book talk is the big thing that has like changed the whole landscape, and um, changed the way that readers find out about books and are telling each other about books, and that and like Bookstagram and other things, but like book talk really dominated the last few years and changed the whole romance landscape a lot, um, and contributed a lot to like the rise of romantasy and things like that. So like that has really changed a lot of on the publisher side with like their thoughts in acquisitions and stuff like that. And that can be stressful if you're not writing the kinds of things that blow up on Book Talk. um, to try to make your stuff flashy enough that it'll still get the interest of a publisher, or just whatever it is that it takes to still get publisher support, which is elusive and generally not up to us and what we're doing. So that's a challenge. But like also on the flip side, like so many more people are reading romance, and they might start out reading the same few books that were recommended on Book Talk over and over again because the algorithm serves just the same things again and again. But they branch out from there and discover other authors. They read more diversely, etc. In general, probably not enough, and like there's still not enough, support for marginalized authors and things like just making, I don't know, giving books by marginalized authors the same kind of push that like the same three big name white lady authors get, is a big thing, not just in romance, but has been a big thing in romance in particular the past few years. So that is still an ongoing issue, I think, despite like romance getting so much this groundswell of like readership. It's not, the rising tide is not quite lifting all boats in all
Yeah.
yet.
I feel like publishing has a tendency to like overdo it on certain trends, to the point where it's like the market is oversaturated and people get tired of having the same books forced down their throat, or here's another of this and here's another. I, I don't think that's a reader problem. I think that's a publishing thing because they're always like chasing after what's going to be the next big thing. And I feel like for YA contemporary, like if we're going to bring it back to the three of us here, um, I've seen a lot lately, discourse on threads, especially about YA contemporary dying and being really hard to sell books and to stand out. And then on the flip side, it's so frustrating because on all my other posts are like the summer I turned pretty and everybody going crazy for that. And there was one post I commented on because there was a person who was like, "What am I going to do when the show is over?" And I think I like quote tweeted them, and I'm like, wait till this person realizes that there's a whole bunch of other young adult romances that exist that are going to give you the same feels, the same vibes, the same all of it. And it's frustrating because um, we're here, like we exist, we're continually putting out these books, but for some reason, publishing, the marketing dollars are not going toward our books. And so it's really, I find that I have to do a lot of the heavy lifting on my own and on my own socials to repeatedly talk about my books and myself and what I'm writing and share all these things because I'm not the one, my books are not the ones that are getting the big, the printed edges or the special editions or the fancy book boxes. I don't think a lot of ours are. And then people start to say things like, "Oh, I wish these books existed," and we're just sort of like, they do, but no one's talking about them, and it's so frustrating because it's just like, and then people will like do like a post and like when you tell us some books and it's always the same books over and over again, which is fine. Like you said, it's like a gateway and a drug, and then it maybe might expose them to other books. But it's like the more marginalizations the author has, then it's like it continues to pull them away from the mass of readership. And it's like people maybe there's like this thing that people don't realize is that they want to see themselves in a book. And so if they see that the character is a person of color or the person is autistic, then I'm like, I don't know if I can relate to this character. Put it back down. Here's another like white lady book. I'll just pick this one up. And so there's a lot of challenges, and it is really hard to break out in this market. And I think it's even harder to um, for those who haven't gotten their foot in the door yet and are trying to sell books because the numbers are saying our books aren't selling, but there's systemic issues there. It's not the books aren't quality books. It's no one is like marketing us properly.
Yeah, just to add, I very much like agree with every single thing you just said. And with that, like publishers could make any book blow up if they wanted to. Like it's like they could put the marketing push toward anything and make it a success with readers. It's like not on readers necessarily. Partially, some of it's on readers, but it's mostly not on readers to do this. It's like they are just receiving what publishers put out there, and the big push is going for books that don't need it, the books that are already going to sell themselves, get a nationwide tour and cool boxes sent to influencers and like whatever else. And then they're like, well, YA contemporary just doesn't sell because they didn't like try any of that stuff. So yeah, it's a very frustrating place to be, and only more so for people who get told, well, your book won't sell because of your whole identity as a person for all these various reasons.
Yeah.
And Kaitlyn, yeah, I want to jump on that about how it becomes like the snake eating its own tail. It's like a book blows up, it gets on the New York Times bestseller list. Everyone is like, oh, it's on the bestseller list, I should read it. And so they read it and it stays on the list. And that, I mean, it's just, I want to get caught in that loop. I would love to get caught in that loop.
Right.
But like what you said about them being able to make a book, Tia Williams, she wrote a YA contemporary. And the publisher put her on tour. She's a Black author. She went on tour. She did all this and she hit the list. So yeah, publishing, they can do it. They can do it. They just take the easiest way out that they can. And it is a very annoying systemic issue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. Oh my God, so much great insight here, and so much to say in so little time. So I guess we have time for, I guess, one more question, and I'll just echo what Lisa said with having been to the New Jersey State Librarian Association conference, which is fantastic, and the librarians are fantastic, and yes, the school librarians, especially with a lot of us doing so much with young adult and kid lit in general. Really one of the best association. I live in Maine, so like I've been to so many all over the place, but like New Jersey really has a special place in my heart for that. The school visits are always so much fun. Um, but with this question, this last question, what I want us to do is to answer the last question that we have in the chat, which is Allie's question. What's one romance trope that you love? And I'm going to tweak it so it's or one that you could absolutely do without. So either one that you love or one that you could do without. And then after answering this question, if you could let folks know where they can find you and or plug whatever you want to plug. And let's start with let's go back to where we started. Let's start with Ronnie.
Yay. Um, Trope that I love is forced proximity.
Oh,
Rivals are enemies to lovers. And one that I can do without is anything that has to do with lying. I'm not a fan of lies. So yeah, anything like secret something or other, anything like that. But other than that, like you can find me anywhere at Lil Ron Gal. If you have my name up on your Zoom, you can see it. And I also put it in a chat.
yes, feel free to throw it in the chat too.
Yeah. So like any social media, that's where you can find me. And as far as I know, this book's still hanging out in Barnes and Noble, so you can find it there. And that's it. So yeah.
Love that. Let's see. Jackie, do you want to go next?
Sure. Maybe not a popular opinion, but I don't really like enemies to lovers because I'm a sensitive person, and it's just like, why are you being mean to me?
Oh,
You're supposed to tell me like this is your way of telling me that you like me. I don't get it. Like, especially like I have a hard enough time like taking people at face value. I'm like, it's not for me. Um, where can you find me? I will write it in the chat. It's at Jackie Khalilieh. I'm on TikTok. I'm on Instagram, and I'm on Threads. And this book came out in May. It actually begins late August, so it's the perfect time to start reading it, and it takes you
Wow.
all the way till December. I'm really proud of this book. It's my first book with an Arab love interest, and that was really important for me to write because of my own nephews who helped change the narrative for me and my father. Um, and I think I will always be a sucker for love triangles. I'm sorry.
that
Love
is the
that.
hottest of takes. Anti-enemies to lovers, pro-love triangle.
We're gonna start a fight in this
No,
chat, but also in
I
this.
honestly love it. I love to hear people's particular things they, especially when it's something you don't hear often. Um, trope I love. I was laughing at Ronnie saying anything with lying because that's so nice and wholesome. And I was gonna say that I love fake dating, which is like lying
Hey,
to everyone.
fake dating I can do. I can do fake
Okay.
dating. It's
Okay, good.
just like when they're hiding things from each other that
Um,
could be very impactful.
yes, I'm with you there. I'm with you there. And you're always like, just tell them, just tell them. They'll get over it. So yes, I love a fake dating story. I love all the ridiculous reasons people make up for why they have to fake date. And it gets more ridiculous all the time. Uh, trope I could do without is not even just romance specific, but happens in other genres. I hate a time loop. I don't know what it is, but like person wakes up every day on the same day, like again and again. Like Groundhog Day, the movie is my nightmare. And
No.
whenever I see something comped to Groundhog, it's just like a personal thing. Whenever I see something comped to Groundhog Day, I'm like, oh no, that's a thing I would have nightmares about. I'm sorry, I can't do it. So sorry, time loops. What else was I? Oh yeah, my book. Um,
You.
my books that are out so far, I have in a little stack here, but the most recent is Wild About You. They're all reality show setups. So we have like a cooking show, a dating show, and outdoorsy Amazing Race type adventure show. And next I'm gonna do something not a reality show, but so that'll come out next summer. And pre-orders and stuff for that should be coming this fall. So that's exciting. Yeah. And I'm on mainly Instagram, a little bit Threads, mostly lurking there, but I'm the Kaitlyn Hill.
Love that. Well, thank you, like each of you, for taking the time for this, for sharing your insights, for being unfiltered and honest. Thank you so much. And thank you to everyone who tuned in, and for Library Link and Stephanie for, being really like the ringleaders and the people behind the scenes here, pulling all this together for all you wonderful librarians. And hopefully, this is the beginning of a long relationship between all of us and you. So don't hesitate to reach out to any of these wonderful authors. If you have questions, if you want to invite them to your schools, or your libraries, or your towns or whatever, or just to chat. I'm sure that everyone here is more than open to that. And yeah, just have a wonderful rest of your week and extended weekend as well.
Thank you, George, and thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much, George. That was awesome.
Thank you, everyone. And again, thank you, George, Ronni, Jackie, and Kaitlyn. I loved this conversation so much. It was so much fun. So I want to have you all back again. It was so lovely.
Thanks
It
so
was
much.
my
you.
pleasure.
Thank you.